Diegetic, the adjective form of the noun diegesis, comes to us from Greek, where it means narration or narrative. Now, this is a very academic word, and its meaning is a little ambiguous, actually. I might even go so far as to say that teachers of writing crafts should probably stay away from this word, but more on that later. First of all, let's cover the simpler of the two main definitions of this word. In film and cinematography studies, diegetic refers to anything that is within the story world as opposed to outside of the story world, within the world of the filmmaker or audience. The most common example you see has to do with music. Diegetic music is happening within the story world. That is, the characters in the film are hearing the music. In Home Alone, for instance, at some point Kevin goes to a church where he hears a children's choir sing "O Holy Night." That song is a diegetic piece of music because Kevin hears it within the story. Non-diegetic music plays over the film or video, but the characters don't hear it. The Rocky training montage, for instance, or the Star Wars intro. Now, of course, you can get all clever with this and have music begin as diegetic and then turn non-diegetic, or vice versa, but still, this is a pretty clear distinction. The other definition of diegetic is a bit more of a can of worms. Plato references it in Republic, Aristotle references it in Poetics, and then it came to be used in modern narratology, where its problematic opposite is not non-diegetic, but mimetic. Roughly, diegesis refers to narration, when the narrator or storyteller tells us what happened, whereas mimesis refers to the act of imitation or mimicry. Think of acting the story out or miming it. You can think of these as two modes of storytelling, and diegesis would be what, say, the Homeric storyteller does in singing or reciting the Odyssey, for instance. But mimesis might be what you'd see play out at a theater, a dramatization of a shipwreck versus a poetic rendering of it through narration. Now, in fiction, in prose fiction, most things are narrated, with the exception, perhaps, of dialogue, which we might say is mimetic. But as you may know, Plato and Aristotle were pretty philosophical guys, and so are most modern narratologists, so there's a lot of quibbling that goes on about this distinction between diegesis and mimesis. If we differentiate the two terms as equating to where the narrator speaks in their own voice versus where they speak through the voices of characters, then we're going to get into trouble, because sometimes narration can be imbued with character voice and diction. He watched the idiots rob the 7-Eleven. And at other times, character voice, that is dialogue, can be very much the narrator's rendering. Any dialogue in a memoir, for instance, is going to be an approximate representation of the actual words spoken, but very heavily influenced by the narrator memory. All this is to say that this diegesis-mimesis distinction is pretty murky, and even Plato in his original discussion of these concepts did not see them as mutually exclusive modes. So these are strange terms. They're talked about mostly in discussions about how their very definitions are problematic. Still, we can say roughly that diegesis is narration and mimesis is representation. And you know, even when people tell stories orally, you can see this rough distinction sometimes.
So I ran up behind him with a hatchet.
Diegesis.
Smash, smash, smash.
Mimesis. So there you have it. Writing craft teachers should probably just stick to talking about narration or showing versus telling or scene versus summary, etc., because diegesis almost by definition takes us straight into very academic, theoretical, philosophical territory, which is fun to think about, but maybe harder to make clear for the sake of delivering writing advice. All right, thanks for watching.